Hi young people. Well, quite a few people sent me this video. Sorry, I'm drinking my coffee. And this girl just makes a whole lot of sense. And it's not because, here's her channel, Candace Owens. I think that's her channel. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Is that, I'm not even going to say it because I'll have all the word police here. You guys can pronounce the damn thing the way you want it. Freaking so tired of word police. Ain't got nothing else better to do. It's not hyperbole. It's not, whatever. People. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, let's get back to this great American. Not great female American. Not great black American. A good, articulate, well-spoken American. She makes some great points. She's saying things that aren't easy. She's not following the Democratic plantation mandated left-wing narrative. And she speaks a whole lot of freaking truth. You want to go watch her video? It was 18 minutes. Yes, I gave her a like and a subscribe because I think she's doing good things. So let's take a look at some of her video.
We are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the black community, at the detriment to the white community, and at the detriment to America as a whole. So I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from. I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black Americans breathing. Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell, and I recently came across an idea that was planted into my head.
What I find interesting is the great authors that she's talking about, I've never heard of them. I know who Rodney King is. I know who George Floyd is. I've never heard of the good people that she's talking about.
Head by Shelby Steele, and it has been something that I cannot forget. It is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life, and it is something that I hope for the Black Americans that are watching will stick with you for the rest of your life. Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain.
That's a great point. I mean, every time there's riots, every time the Black Lives Matter and all the blame white people for everything come out and destroy and loot in the name of some special citizen, they always seem to be criminals. They always seem to be committing crimes. They all seem to have a tattered past, yet the black community That's why when I say people attack me, because I don't say it as polite as this young lady, but when I say the black community loses credibility because the only people that they hold up as heroes are usually pieces of crap. And they don't promote the real good people. And she brings that point home here in a minute.
Not every Black American is a criminal. Not every Black American is committing crimes. But we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good. You would be hard pressed to find, a Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime. And I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin.
I get that a lot. Every time I put something that doesn't make George Floyd look like a hero, I get attacked by all these left-wingers saying either I'm racist or... And they're going to call her names. They're going to call her, and she talks about, she's going to be called a coon, Uncle Tom, whatever, because she's not holding. So the black community attacks good black Americans, and they come out in groves defending criminal black Americans. I just don't get it. And I give this girl props. I think she's really got her head on straight. She says some really great things in here.
if, and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept the narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer. For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight.
Man, and that's so freaking true. And and for the life of me, I don't get it. I mean, how can so many people, how do stereotypes become stereotypes? Because they're normally true. How does a whole population, or the majority of the population, or the most outspoken, or the only part of the population that the left-wing media promotes, how do all those people get so fooled into defending criminals? Now look, I'm probably one of the worst guys on the internet about holding cops accountable and freaking calling them out when they're wrong. That dude should not have had his knee on his neck for that long. He didn't care about him. I do think he was doing what all cops do, and what the government has allowed them to do, and what left-wing politicians have allowed them to do, and they allow cops to do it every day all over the country, and now all of a sudden a black man dies, and because it's a white officer, it's suddenly a knee on the neck is the problem. I mean, I'm seeing more and more and more. Even during the riots, I saw no less than 30 cops kneeling on suspects. It is a common way to put weight on a suspect to where you can sit up, you still have access to your gun, etc. But I'm not here to defend a cop by no means. This girl is speaking a lot of good truth. I definitely think she's worth watching. I wish I had more time to kind of review her videos, but I'm freaking like a one-armed paper hanger in here. It's all the news is coming out and everything, so I'm trying to get videos out that I think are more in my niche.
As some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be black, is you have to say this was wrong and that this person was amazing. I won't do that. George Floyd was not an amazing person. And as soon as this video hit the internet, I did just basic searches. Everyone jumped on it and was looking at the police officer, and everyone agrees that the police officer was wrong, and the police officer has been arrested. So that is not the reason I'm not discussing that, is because that is not something that has been misconstrued in the media.
And that's a great point, is everybody, all they want to do is focus on the white police officer, not just the police officer, because there's plenty of black police officers who do the exact same thing, but it's not highlighted by the left-wing manipulating media that wants to push their narrative and tell everybody how racist America is, how bad America is, and how poor black people walk outside going to work. You don't see any black people usually. I haven't seen it. Somebody may be able to find one video. I don't see black people wearing suits, going to work, raising their kids, dropping their kids off at school and going to work, getting beat up by the cops. I haven't seen it. It seems to only happen in high crime areas with bars, high drug activity, high crime areas, and people with no jobs wearing their colors, wearing their $500 sneakers, and worshiping rappers. And that's exactly what this woman is saying, except she says it because she's a woman and black. She doesn't get near the hate that I get, although I'm sure the black community can be pretty ruthless to a black person that doesn't follow their narrative.
First and foremost, George Floyd at the time of his arrest was high on fentanyl, and he was high on methamphetamine. This came back in both of his autopsy reports. If you pursue the 911 transcript, you can see the person describing somebody who is out of their mind high, and which is what made the person fearful, because he tried to use a bill that I guess was a fake bill to purchase something,
counterfeit.
And then he was outside acting weird, and they, in their police call, said that this person was obviously distorted and on drugs. When he is put into handcuffs and is put against the wall, a baggie of what looks to be like cocaine or it's white. It's a white baggie that he drops onto the floor that you can see in an image. If you look up the clip, the media is refusing to circulate it. You can find it on Twitter. If you use DuckDuckGo and look up George Floyd baggie, you can watch the clip yourself with your own eyes. He had drugs on him at the time of his arrest. Now, barring all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest. But
agreed. And that's the big point that everybody's just attacking me, because I put up the criminal history that the Daily Mail put up, and everybody's like, oh, you can't believe anything. I mean, confirmation bias is so strong on these cases. You have people that hate the cops that think the cop's wrong no matter what. And I mean, anything that supports that, they're all for. And they think George Floyd, because he's black, he has to be a victim. And no matter what evidence you put. The fact is, George Floyd was a prior parolee. He had been in jail several times for drugs, assault, home invasion, using a firearm. He had a criminal, and everybody's like, oh, well, it was like 5 years before he was, I think he was released in 2014 from a Texas prison when he moved out of the state to, I think, Minnesota, where this happened, wherever city he was living in. And doing this crime, which nobody wants to get, everybody wants the media, left-wing media. He's turned his life around. He's a great human being. Okay, he was doing porn, which, as long as it's legal, it's not illegal. It's not against the law. I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't know if it was legal porn. I don't know. I don't even know much about the porn industry, so I don't know how it's regulated or whether it is regulated. And so, should that matter? Maybe not. But to me, it just, porn is usually connected to not the highest class of people. Drugs, prostitution, using women, paying them. I mean, so porn is not what I would call a stellar career. Some people may think it is. I personally think it's kind of got some negative connotation to it. So he was in porn. At the time of this incident, he was trying to use a counterfeit bill. He was trying to use sorry, I had to sneeze. He was with a person who tried to use a counterfeit bill, and it was detected, and she was told she couldn't use it. She walked outside, and then Floyd went in and tried to use it. So obviously he knew it was counterfeit. People were saying maybe he didn't know, maybe he got it. I think he knew it. Not only that, he was under the influence of fentanyl and methamphetamines because it was found in the system. So he's under the influence of drugs. He's in possession of illegal drugs. He's in possession of fake money. He's trying to pass fake money. Then he gets in a car and he's about to drive away, which is driving under the influence, endangering other people. And all of that, according to the left-wing media, equals he turned his life around. And like she just said, is this the best black America can get behind? Is this the pillar of the community for black America? I mean, I just don't get it. Why? Well, I do get it. The media is run by the left wing, and they have to push this narrative to keep the black people voting for them, even though they've been voting for them 50 years and their life hasn't gotten that much better. The people in the ghettos, their life hasn't gotten better. So, I mean, I don't know why black community has this loyalty to Democrats. I damn sure don't have loyalty to the Republicans, but you know what? I just think the Democrats are such lying and destructors of good and trying to destroy America. Nothing they do is good in my book. Hang on, let's get some more of her.
During all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest, but what I find despicable to be is that everyone is pretending that this man lived a heroic lifestyle when he didn't, and I want to talk about what his lifestyle was leading up to this moment and why I refuse to accept the narrative that this person shirts with his name on it, okay? So here we have, first and foremost, let's start from the bottom of his record. And by the way, I am not saying that if you have a record, you don't deserve a second chance. I think people get arrested and some people can serve time in prison. And I believe in second chances, but I do draw the line when it comes to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth chances. 1998, he spent...
Okay, and that's a good point. That's another thing that I'm getting attacked about. Don't you believe somebody should get a second chance? Look, a second chance is you make a mistake and you learn from it. When you've got multiple arrests, multiple times in jail, I don't know, maybe he's only been to prison once. He's been in jail several times. People, and she kind of misconstrues this too, and I'm sure they'll attack her on that because she didn't know. But normally when you get convicted of a crime and you do your sentence under a year, you don't go to a federal penitentiary or a state prison. In order to go to prison, you have to get a year or more of time, which is why a lot of times people will get 3 years and then it'll get suspended and they'll get 6 months. That way they can go to a county jail and they don't have to go to the state prison, because getting someone in the system and all that takes a long time. And if you're doing under a year, it becomes non-cost effective, I guess. I don't know how it's cost effective anyway, but anyway, prison is normally state prison and anything other than state prison is usually what's called county time or county jail. So if you get 10 months, you're probably going to do it in a county jail. If you get 11 months, you're going to do it in a county jail. If you get 14 months, you're going to go to state prison. He was still sentenced and convicted of crimes. And look, I was in law enforcement a long time, 30 years plus 30 years. I'm telling you, everybody with rap sheets of multiple arrests, that means they've committed at least 3 times as many times as they were arrested. Because we don't catch everybody the first time. We catch them after multiple times and multiple mistakes. Nobody gets arrested just when they commit a crime. Just doesn't happen. Unless you've only been arrested once, it was your first time, and then you've never done it again. I might buy it. But when you have multiple arrests, you are what I consider a career criminal. You do crime all the time, and we're only catching you a small percentage. So the fact that he went to jail and to get a conviction and to do jail time 4 different times, he was arrested several times where he didn't go to jail. He committed several crimes where he wasn't arrested or he got away. So just keep that in mind when you're hearing this. But again, I've always said I've arrested felons that I thought had more integrity, more honesty and honor than a lot of DAs that I work with. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, than some DAs I worked with. There's some crooked ass people in government, and just because they wear a suit don't mean they're not part of a gang. I'm telling you, and I always go, my default is Jeff Reisig, the DA of Yolo County. The most despicable, dishonest, will do anything to get a conviction. Will lie, will hide evidence from the courts. I mean, and he's still in office, and he's been, like, caught doing it. But he gets immunity, just like the cops. And nobody wants to go after government, so he gets government protection. So, there's a lot of ex-felons that, and I even know some now who are ex-felons. I don't give a shit if you got a felony. I mean, it's easy to get a felon. Now, if you've been arrested 20 times and you've been to prison 4 or 5 times, then we're probably not going to get along. And I'm not going to believe you when you say you're a great guy, which is kind of what they're doing to George Floyd here.
Spent 10 months in prison for theft with a firearm. That was the first prison stint that I could find on him.
Okay, so he theft with a firearm. We call that normally armed robbery, because theft, you don't need a gun. You just steal something, there's no one there. If you use a firearm, that means you threatened somebody and used it against. So that's robbery. So armed robbery that they pled down probably to theft and gave him 10 months. So that was a more serious crime that he got a plea deal for. I wonder why he got the plea deal. It must have been because he was turning his life around. Okay.
In 2002, he spent 8 months in prison for a cocaine offense.
A cocaine offense would mean if you go to prison for 8 months, normally it's not because you have a little bit of coke on you. You usually get diversion, you get probation, etc. If you do 8 months for cocaine, you've got priors for cocaine, or you were handling cocaine, you had enough amount to where it was for sales, or you had a different bag, you had cash, you had pay-and-o sheets, you had things for sales in order to get 8 months for a cocaine, okay? So that's what a lot of people don't understand. When the media tells you it's these little offenses, you think, oh, he had a little bit of white dust on his nose and he got 8 months. Nobody goes to jail for having cocaine. They get probation, they get diversion, they get drug rehab, they get all these liberal programs making them a poor victim.
In 2004, just 2 years later, he spent another 10 months in prison for a cocaine offense.
Oh, another one 10 months later, he gets 10 months. Again, probably sales, probably had scales, probably had packaging material. This was not white dust on his nose.
In 2005, he spent another 10 months in prison for having less than 1 gram of cocaine on him again.
Now, because he's got all these priors, now if he has a little bit, they will probably send him back because he's got several priors. So maybe this one, less than 1 gram, it wasn't for sales, but I still think because he went to prison, he was probably on probation. Normally when you get these prisons, you go to jail, you usually get probation for a couple years. So I'm thinking a lot of these sentences were violation of his probation. He was committing crimes while he was out on probation from previous crimes. But Ricky turned his life around. Okay, whatever.
In 2007, and this was the biggest instant that I had that made me realize this was a horrible human being that I am not going to pretend was a good person. In 2005, a woman who was pregnant received a knock at the door, and she went to the door, and the person pretended to be someone that worked for the water department. So she opened her door and quickly realized that the person at her door did not work for the water department and attempted to slam it. At the moment that she was attempting to slam it, a Ford pulled up and another 5 men jumped out of the car, and one of which was George Floyd.
Okay, we call this home invasion. You bring multiple people and you invade somebody in their home. You hold them hostage, you kidnap them, and then you rampage their house and steal anything of value. That's called home invasion. That's pretty serious. And I think I forgot, she'll tell you.
Came up to the door and they forced their way inside to her home, inside of her home. Mind you, this woman is pregnant. At that point, George Floyd took out a gun and pressed it to her stomach. She was screaming, begging for her life.
Okay, when crooks know that women are pregnant, these are predators that people probably don't have experience dealing with. When career criminals and crooks deal with pregnant women, they know that they will do anything to protect their baby. So threatening the baby is always a great way to get a woman to comply and not to fight back. Women will do just about anything to protect their unborn baby. Well, most women, some don't care. Even after they're born, they don't care. But as a stereotype of women and pregnant women, most will do anything to protect their child. So pointing a gun at your belly, knowing that your child is in danger, will get a woman to comply quicker than pointing it at her head, even though that would kill the kid too. It's just more emotional and traumatizing to threaten a baby of a pregnant woman. But Rick, he turned his life around. Okay, look, these are just the facts. I don't know the guy. I never met the guy. He may be giving out freaking free Christmas gifts to poor kids. I don't know.
Life, and he put her inside of her living room and instructed one of his criminal friends that was with him to watch her and to make sure she didn't leave the living room. So he was playing guard while they ransacked her home looking for drugs and money. They did not find drugs. They ended up taking, I believe, her wallet and her cell phone. Fortunately for her, her neighbor observed what was going on and caught the license plate of the people as they pulled off and called 911. And when 911 was able to, they were able to track down the car of which George Floyd was the driver, and they arrested him. And 2 years later, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that instance. Now, you can say the media is portraying it like he was just getting his life together after, being released in 2014 following that incident.
So he got out of jail in 2014, and we're now 2020, and he had turned his life around using fentanyl and methamphetamine, possession of methamphetamine, trying to pass counterfeit money, and then getting in a car and trying to drive under the influence of meth and fentanyl. And this equals to the left-wing media turned his life around. Are you freaking kidding me?
He was just getting his life together and moved and was going to start a 5 years until this incident when the police were called on him again. He became an exemplary character, but happened to be high on fentanyl and methamphetamine and trying to. So in my opinion, George Floyd was a criminal. He was a criminal. And just.
Now see, if a white person says that, because when I say that, I'm a racist, I'm just a cop, I don't believe in second chances, and or I think the cop, I'm just protecting the cop because I think it's okay to kill a guy because he's got a. That's not what anybody is saying. This cop was freaking wrong. My biggest problem with this cop being wrong is I've been saying cops have been over aggressive and an occupying terrorist force for years, and nobody wants to do nothing. And now all of a sudden people are like, oh, it's just this cop. It's not just this cop. It's standard operating procedure for our cops. And politicians and the left wing media is all complicit in it, and they don't give a shit about it until it fits their narrative and they can tear down America and make it a race issue and start riots and try to blame white people and try to divide black and white people and make black. there's so many victims. I got another of a black lady where they burnt down her building and she's out there working and she's like, you know, Black Lives Matter. Does my life matter? Look at my shop. I worked my life to get this shop. Hard-working black woman. A lot of black people are getting hurt because of this pillar of community, George Floyd. Ricky turned his life around. You can't talk about him. Okay, whatever.
Play a part of the broken black culture that always wants to martyr criminals, who wants to pretend they were these upstanding human beings that just wanted to help society, that just wanted to reach out and uplift society. And he has a rap sheet that is long, that is dangerous. He was an example of a violent criminal his entire life. Okay, up until the very last moment. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. No one that I have spoken to, no one in the news is defending Derek Chauvin.
Exactly. See, the media will automatically turn any defense or any criticism of Floyd into, oh, you're defending the white cop. No, that's not the same thing. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous.
Narrative, by the way. Police brutality, racially motivated police brutality is a myth, okay? So let's get into that. Not only are we using this death, right, and allowing it to cause these riots and protests, pretending this was some upstanding citizen in the black community who was tackled, riots in which black people are dying, in which actual upstanding black citizens are dying. Case in point, I'm sure you guys have all now seen David, the sheriff that just was shot and killed because he was trying to protect a pawn shop. Please look him up if you haven't seen it. I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is David, who was shot and killed for trying to protect a pawn shop from looters. An upstanding citizen, an actual head of a police. He was the head of a police his entire life, 77 years old, did everything right, right? So we now have to kill upstanding black citizens because a non-upstanding black citizen, a career black criminal, died. Now, did he deserve to die in that manner? No. I can't say it enough. No, he didn't deserve to die in that manner. But I will be damned if the rest of us upstanding black citizens have to suffer because of this incident that rarely ever happens in a...
Good for her, man. I mean, this whole video, she speaks great sense.
Criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than you do as a black criminal. Last year, a total of 9 unarmed black men were killed by police officers and 19 white men were killed by police officers. For those of you that aren't good at mathematics, right, you might be thinking, oh, but Candace, white people represent 60% of the population and black people represent just 13% of the population. It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent. It matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent. And unfortunately, black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community. Let me tell you, 6% of the population, right? Black men, 6% of the population account for 44% of all murders in this country, according to 2018 statistics. That is what you call a gap. And yet white people who represent 60% of the population, we represent 13, black men are 6%, only represent 50% of all the murders, right? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. A 6-point variation in a community where we are extreme minorities. We commit 50% of all violent offenses, evenly split, and we're only 13% of the population, okay? So we have a lot more encounters with police officers. And
this is a point that nobody wants to talk about when the left-wing media's, when you look at violent crime, because it's committed so much by black people in black neighborhoods, and the contact with police is so much more likely. When was the last time you heard of somebody that doesn't go in the ocean that got attacked by a shark? Let me help you out. Never. The odds of getting attacked by a shark, if you don't go in the ocean, is slim to none and slim left town. It just ain't gonna freaking happen. So the odds of a black man committing a crime, getting contacted and arrested and physically handled by police is a hell of a lot higher than people getting attacked by sharks that don't go in the ocean. We'll just use that as an example.
About real statistics, the police officers have way more to be fearful of in the black community than the other way around, okay? We commit, on average, a police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around. Okay? So this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors. It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black because it's an election year.
Excellent point. Again, this girl just hits the mark on so many levels. I'm surprised she hasn't been attacked more.
Accidental slayings or brutality. Did you know that doctors accidentally kill 250,000 people every year because of mistakes? Did you know that there's been doctors that have been arrested for being serial killers that just were killing people because they wanted to? Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings because some doctors are? Or do we realize that society...
I'm glad she covered the doctor angle. I keep trying to bring that up and people keep telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, look, this girl says a lot of great things. Again, hit her subscribe button, give her a like, and go visit her channel. She speaks a lot of damn sense, and we need to support good black people and not just black criminals. Not that there's anything wrong with being a criminal. I understand that people turn their lives and make mistakes. All right, we'll end that there.